How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Welcome to the Global Virtual Summit 2026.
Thank you.
Before going to
Um,
start our session, I would like to introduce to our global audience.
mhm.
Tracy Rashid, the cake artist, team development specialist, and a founder of Essence of Cake Teams, where she uniquely blends creative with leadership transformation through cake. Known for her engaging storytelling, warmth, and practical insight, she brings energy, humor, and clarity to conversation about culture, connection, and change. Through her talks and workshops, Tracy inspires leaders and teams to move from noise to nourishment, showing that whenever ingredient is valued and supported, extraordinary results from in business and beyond. That was a great bio, Tracy. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. And thank you for joining my session today. So, last year I tried to bake a cake without half the ingredients. And I thought, how wrong can this actually go? And as I'm sure you can imagine, it went very wrong. So, as I scraped the sad, collapsed mess out of the oven, I actually realized something. This is exactly what we do in teams and society. We expect greatness, but we ignore the essential voices. And then it actually hit me that global change works exactly like baking. Excuse me. So, as I was introduced, my name is Tracy. I'm a cake artist and team building expert from Essence of Cake. And I'd like to pose a series of questions today that really gets you thinking very differently than maybe how you're thinking at the moment. So, have you ever realized that some of the biggest lessons in leadership, collaboration, and global change come from cake? And yes, I said cake. I'm a little bit obsessed with it, I must admit. I've made it my career, even though I was in learning and development before that. But the two really work together very well. So I don't mean cake in the too many slices on a Friday afternoon, like we'll probably have today, but in a way that cake reveals what happens when different ingredients come together with purpose, balance, and intention. Now, I know what you're thinking, can cake really shape global change? Well, yes, it can. Stay with me and I'll explain how. So, across the world, cake is a language that people understand. Birthdays, celebrations, endings, beginnings, cake travels borders without needing a passport. But here's the real question. If something as simple and universal as cake can connect us, why are human voices still so divided? We live in a world, especially now, that's louder than ever, yet somehow still full of unheard voices. Voices in teams, voices in communities, voices in organizations, and voices in countries. And shaping global change starts with this: who gets heard and who doesn't. In my own journey, working through learning and development through corporate organizations, changing my career when I had my children to work on my hobby as my passion into my business, I realized that cake, and yes, cake, had become more than just art. Sorry. It has now become a lens for understanding people, purpose, and power. Oops. So, those team meetings where everyone is talking, nothing is happening, and people leave wondering what was the point. You've just spent an hour in a room, and really you could have been putting your time to better use. It's a bit like throwing flour, eggs, butter, and sugar into a bowl and expecting a three-tier masterpiece to come out of it just by shouting at it. Have you ever tried baking without mixing anything? Have you ever tried baking without preheating an oven? Or by ignoring the ingredients you don't like? Exactly. And that's what many organizations do with their people. They hire diverse talent, wonderful ingredients, but they don't give them the environment to rise. They don't mix ideas. They don't listen to the quiet voices. They rely on the same old recipes and wonder why the taste is bland. Global change falters when voices are left out of the mixture. So let me ask you another question. Who speaks first in your meetings? Who speaks last in your meetings? Who never speaks at all? We often assume that silence means lack of ideas. But what if silence means something else? What if it means I don't feel safe? I don't feel heard? I don't feel that my voice matters here? Amy Edmondson, an organizational behavioral professor and of leadership and management at Harvard Business School, says psychological safety is the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated, for speaking up. And how often do we kind of have an idea or a thought or something that could actually add value to a meeting or an environment that we're in, but we're kind of scared that us saying something will cause humiliation or cause people to look at us differently. Mental Health First Aid England workplace research in 2026 shows that 45% of UK employees feel unable to raise mistakes or risks at work. Imagine how that must feel. That's almost half the workforce. 49% don't feel comfortable expressing their needs at work. Imagine how much time we spend there. It's important that we can express our needs and that our voice is going to be heard. So we need to dig deeper to understand why someone isn't using their voice. A psychological safety is linked to 50% psychological safety is linked to a 50% increase in employee engagement. And that statistic is from World Metrics Psychological Safety Report in 2025. So again, just by listening to people, having that safety in an environment means that their voice can be heard and they can move further and bring people together. So let's bring this back to cake. Imagine a cake batter where the sugar refuses to mix, or the egg sits quietly in the corner of the bowl thinking, well, no one asked me. Would that cake ever work? Of course not. Yet we design workplaces every day where voices stay separate instead of blended. And then we wonder why innovation doesn't rise. Margaret Mead, who was an American cultural anthropologist and public intellectual, said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world." And I'll say that again. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. So let's consider vanilla extract. We've all heard of vanilla extract. Most of us put it into a cake. It's a tiny bottle, often overlooked, but remove it and suddenly the cake tastes incomplete. How many vanilla extracts do we have in our teams? Quiet, understated voices holding the whole thing together. In my cake artistry and my work with teams, I see this all the time. The person who doesn't speak the loudest, but holds the deepest insight. That person, when they speak, everyone listens. The person who asks the questions that no one else thought of. The person who brings calm when things are falling apart. Empowering voices isn't about making everyone louder. It's about making sure no ingredient is ignored. Because global change doesn't come from volume, it comes from contribution. We talk a lot about leadership at work, in the world, in communities. We talk about vision, we talk about strategy, we talk about confidence. We talk about a lot of things, to be fair. But rarely are we listening. Simon Sinek, the author of Start With Why, says leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those you are in charge of. So we really need to listen. Listen in a way that says, I value what you bring. I'm curious about your perspective. Your voice matters here. And when people feel heard, something remarkable happens. Their confidence rises, their creativity rises, their courage rises, and just like a cake in the oven, everything rises. So we can transform teams through cake, believe it or not. We all know we have types in our teams: the strategist, the organizer, the creative thinker, the quiet observer, just to name a few. Now picture this. and I'm sure you've been in this situation many times. A team sits around a table, not with PowerPoints, not with flip charts, but with cake ingredients. And someone asks, which is usually me, because like I said, I'm a little bit obsessed with cake. Right, if there's a cake, if this cake represents your team, sorry, what ingredient are you? At first, people laugh, people think I'm a bit weird, a bit strange for asking such a, a kind of general question in a business environment. But then you think flour, sugar, eggs, butter, chocolate chips if someone's feeling a little bit adventurous. But then things actually shift and people start thinking more dynamically. Someone might say, I'm flour, I hold things together. Another says, I'm sugar, I bring the energy. Someone else might whisper, I'm the baking powder, I help others rise. And occasionally someone might think, I'm the icing, I make it all feel finished. And there, in that playful moment, people suddenly see themselves in a very different way, and others differently as well. Because cake can become the mirror. And in that mirror, people discover their voice. And with that, the courage to make a mess. So when you have your voice, you kind of think, actually, I can make a bit of a mess. It's okay. Because let's be honest, change is messy, progress is messy, and life is definitely messy. And anyone who's ever baked knows the kitchen does not stay clean. It does not matter how often you clean it down or your best intentions. So, why do we expect leadership and global change to look neat and tidy? Why do we fear the messiness of creativity, the messiness of collaboration, disagreement, diversity, when actually that's where all the flavor comes from? That's where all the passion is. That's where all the movement and growth is. So, when did we start believing that innovation happens in tidy spreadsheets instead of sticky fingers and cracked eggs? Sometimes you need to break things in order to discover something new. You can't crack an egg without baking a cake, as they like to say. So, I say the essence of cake is a recipe for empowered voices. So, what is essence of cake or the essence of cake? It's simple. It's ingredients, it's heat, it's time, and it's trust. And isn't that the essence of empowering voices and shaping global change? Ingredients, a mix of different people, experiences, and perspectives. We need that. We need those differences of experiences and perspectives. The heat is the challenges that test us to bring out our true flavor. If we're always in a comfortable position, we're never going to challenge the status quo. Time, the patience to allow growth, understanding, and trust to develop. We need that time to move things forward. We're very much in a rush now in the world that we live in, but for things to change and to change on a permanent and positive basis, we need time. Then there's trust, the belief that if we put the right things together, the right ingredients together, then something extraordinary will rise every single time. And isn't that the world that we need right now? Not more noise, but more nourishment. Not more opinions, but more understanding. Not more competition, but collaboration. And then we can indeed change the world one slice at a time. So here's my final question to you. If you had the chance to empower one voice, whose would it be? Because global change doesn't begin with governments or policies or even summits, sorry to say, but it begins with conversations, with listening, with noticing the people around us, with realizing the world will only rise if we actually rise together. And maybe it begins with cake. So next time you stand over a mixing bowl, think of the people in your life, in your team, in your world, and ask, who needs encouragement? Who needs space? Who needs a moment to rise? And who have you underestimated simply because you didn't recognize their flavor? Empowering voices isn't complicated. It's not even new. it's simply human. And if cake can teach us anything, it's that when every ingredient is valued, included, and given the right conditions, we can create something worth sharing, something that can spread, something that could genuinely shape global change. Thank you. And please go and have a slice of cake today. You've earned it.
We really enjoyed your innovative presentation.
Thank
We gained
you.
a lot of knowledge and recipes too.
Of course.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you. And if there's any
We
questions,
have a
please ask.
few questions from our audience. We will directly share it to you email. You can answer there. Thank
And
you.
obviously, you've got
Thank you,
my link to
Tracy.
my LinkedIn there as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our wonderful speakers for the insightful sessions today. We gained a lot of valuable knowledge from each of you. With that, we have a successful completed day 3. We look forward to meeting you all again tomorrow for more inspiring sessions in the day 4. Okay, bye bye.